Good morning.
Good morning.
A little teaser there. Everyone is born between heaven and hell. No one is born completely in heaven or completely in hell. This world has both good and evil in it. We have both good and evil in us, light and darkness. So here comes a question for you. You ready? Why did the Creator do this? What is the point? Why is there so much goodness and beauty and so much pain and suffering? Any answers?
For freedom, to be able to choose one or the other in freedom, to align with that, to own it, to make it our own.
Yeah.
Without that, we're just automatons, puppets.
Right. Right. So the system or the design is that we change and grow, right? Mm-hmm. Any other answers? In the Eastern tradition, we might hear an answer that says balance, so that we live in a balance and we choose between this and that, good and evil. And there is an even deeper reason beyond all these very important points that we just spoke. And this is where I'm doing a little dance. Moving out a little bit. Little kick there.
Good job.
There's an even deeper reason why we have good and evil in us and all around us in this life. The Creator designed life with both heaven and hell because of the absolute total integrity of love. I'm going to say that again. The reason that all of life has good and evil, and we have good and evil in us, is because of the absolute total integrity of love. What does integrity mean? In the New Oxford American Dictionary, integrity is a state of wholeness. The wholeness of love. The undividedness of love. Lack of corruption of love. Honesty, moral uprightness, and unimpaired. So love is pure, perfect, undivided, and whole. It's because of these qualities of love that we have heaven and hell. Love asks all of us, our whole self, not part of us, and not just sometimes. Love asks all of us and wants all of us, nothing less. So that means our relationship with God must be genuine. It must be acquired by our own choices, day in and day out, so that we become loving for its own sake. And as Rhett highlighted in the question, so that we're not automatons or puppets, so that we're not just saying, okay, I choose to love, and we just kind of let it be out there because somebody told us to.
Or that's all that there is.
Or all that there is. So actually, because of the integrity of love, the total integrity of love, we must become it. Love. Love at its source asks the same integrity of us as it is. So we need a process that forms this love in us for real, so that we become love itself. We become real love Like in the childhood story, The Velveteen Rabbit. Anybody read that story? Yeah. The many years of living, being squeezed, being petted, being used up, that little rabbit, made the Velveteen Rabbit in that childhood story more real. Soft, loved, lovable. So for us, the many years of making mistakes, going through tribulations, sufferings, make us more real. So the question is, why does this work? Because I know with people that I listen with at the hospital who are sick and sometimes dying, sometimes chronically ill and in constant pain, they rail against the design. They rail against the idea that God has set in motion a world that means that we suffer. And seemingly in unjust ways. Why am I sick and you're not? When I've done everything the way I thought I was supposed to and I'm still sick. Why does this work? Why is the design as it is? Why does going through being tossed and torn, going up and going down and being thrown here and there, what does that do? Well, just a disclaimer that it doesn't always work. But when it works, it really works. When we are willing, as Swedenborg put it, to suffer ourselves to be regenerated, or to suffer ourselves to grow spiritually, then it works. That is, it works when we enter into experiences of any kind, good and bad, loving, hateful, any experience. Purely, we enter into that experience purely without ulterior motives. When we're willing to go through travail, to feel lost, to be tossed about, for the sake of love. We're willing to go through hell and back for the sake of love. And the value of all of this is then that we are willing to yield, to ask for help, to enter into a reciprocal, dynamic relationship with the Lord. So that our relationship with the Lord is give and take, back and forth, alive. And this relationship opens us up, and we become more real. More of who we really are. Our faith moves out of the shallow waters of our heads only and into the life wisdom of our hearts, which, when broken, can pick up the movement of the divine, happening all the time. The wisdom of the broken heart can sense the constant intersecting activity of God with us. So let us consider a key point. There is tremendous spiritual value in making mistakes. So let me stop right now and ask, who here has already made a mistake this morning? I lost my cell phone. And I got Joe and my mom all worked up.
Did you try calling it? I don't know.
Well, it was on silent.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, found it, but, you know. So but my point is, it doesn't have to be huge. There's tremendous value in messing up, in making mistakes, even though mistakes can lead to real tragedy sometimes. Mistakes make us humble. They can create a doorway that opens our understanding to the important place of forgiveness and of mercy, even in the most trying circumstances. And that is a miracle, a divine miracle, forgiveness. That even the hard shell of our physical minds open to forgiveness. And even when we cannot find a reason to forgive. Wow, I've been there. I don't know if you have, where forgiveness was the only thing that could heal, and you couldn't find a reason to do it. But somehow,
Yes.
you were able to by the Lord's mercy and grace. That's a miracle. Jesus said, "Take my yoke upon you and learn of me." Jesus placed himself before the world that we might choose to follow him. He accommodated himself to our condition. He lived with us. He labored for us. He forgave us, and he died among us. He did all this that we might learn of him, to be touched by his gentleness, to be sanctified by his sanctity, to be melted by his self-sacrifice. And so little by little, we can acquire a deep and real love for him. For those of us who toil and become weary and heavy laden, and suffer pains of heart and of conscience, which casts us down far and low, Jesus is the one like no one else can be. Our way, our truth, our life. When we can see the truth of who he is, that is the greatest miracle of all. And when that comes, the resources of heaven light our way with extraordinary brightness and power.